Welcome to Inside the 12. Once again, it is the holiday season. Most importantly, it is college football playoff season, and it is bowl season. Here to recap the Big 12 title game with us and, of course, go through all the news and notes from around the Big 12. Taylor McCarve joins us right now. After suffering a lower body Zoom injury last week, he was doing so much work around the Big 12 title game, and I guess earlier this week, some hard-hitting questions from Arian James on Big 12 today. Maybe Monday morning quarterback. They have him sidelined. He's day-to-day, but he's with us today. Taylor, what's up, man?
How we doing, Pete?
I'm doing great, and I really can't wait to talk to you about the boots on the ground, the atmosphere, and the vibe around that Big 12 title game. It was just such a special day. The ratings up 30% from last year. It really seems like this conference has just reached out and grabbed the nation, right? It's like, hey, we are where it's at, a different league.
It was an incredible atmosphere. It set an attendance record, over 85,000 people at that game. I thought BYU did a great job traveling as well. Obviously, the proximity to Lubbock, there in Dallas, we expected it to be a big crowd for Texas Tech, and it was.
Very impressive. We will dive deep into that game, X's and O's wise reaction, Texas Tech in the college football playoff. But let's start with a look at the bowl schedule and the Big 12. A lot of involvement from the conference here. Taylor, what jumps out at you on this? I mean, it is an illustrious bowl schedule. A lot of great matchups here for the Big 12.
Yeah, I don't think there's a dud in this entire slate. I think every one of these games is one that I'm excited to watch just as a fan of the sport. There's a number that you can call out that I think are very interesting. Arizona State getting to play the ACC champ on big CBS. That's huge. Arizona and SMU, I think that's going to be a great matchup. I love Navy and Cincinnati. And then the marquee game that I think we're going to talk a lot about, Georgia Tech and BYU. You know, both of these teams, BYU especially, felt like they had a real shot at being in the college football playoff even after the loss against Texas Tech. And Georgia Tech, it was a couple of weeks ago that it looked like that was a team still fighting for their ACC lives and a potential at the college football playoff. So, look, this is a great slate for the Big 12. Good numbers for the number of teams that are in bowl games again out of the Big 12. And this one I'm really excited for. Yeah,
let's take a look at that Georgia Tech BYU game, right? 12th ranked BYU. A snub in the college football playoff. That's something we'll touch on later. Taking on number 22 Georgia Tech in that Pop-Tarts Bowl in Orlando. That's going to be Saturday, December 27th on ABC. This is a balanced attack for Georgia Tech, right? I mean, they throw the ball well. They run the ball well. One of the most balanced attacks in the country, but you're playing against a defense that's limiting opponents to 19 points a game. So BYU is up for the challenge, and I'm sure they're going to be bloodthirsty after last week.
What stands out to me about this game is culture for both of these teams. I don't think you're going to see a lot of opt-outs in this game. I think you're going to see both of these teams trying to compete at the highest level. And this is also just the Pop-Tarts Bowl in general, one of the more entertaining bowl games with all the things they do off the field and surrounding this game. We're going to have an edible Pop-Tart as part of the trophy ceremony. But when you think about the style of both of these teams, they want to play good defense. They want to run the football well. I think Haynes King is one of the more fun quarterbacks in the sport. And we already know so much about Bear Bachmeier and what he's done as a freshman this season. Again, I think this will be an incredibly competitive and physical game. And out of all of these bowl games, I think this will be one of the kind of the tone setters where, again, you're not going to see a lot of opt-outs. I think you're going to see high energy in this game.
Yeah, and let's move on now. The Holiday Bowl, right, in San Diego. Arizona versus SMU, number 17 ranked Arizona. Winners of 5 straight, one of the hottest teams in the country coming into this game. That game is January 2nd, 8 p.m. on Fox. When you look at this matchup, what sticks out to you?
That Arizona sitting there at 9-3 with Noah Fafita, I think they built to, exceeding expectations in a way that very few of us thought coming into this season they would be in this spot. SMU on the other side, it was a slow start for their season. And Kevin Jennings, I think they got better and better as the season went along. They had a chance. If they had won at Cal, they would have been playing for the ACC championship. So two teams that I think had similar stories got better and better as the year went along. With Arizona, again, exceeding expectations. And I think if for this team that, again, coming into the season, it looked like they were going to be potentially potentially a 4 or 5 win team was the expectation. If they could double that up, get this win and get to a 10-win season, and incredibly impressive stuff for Arizona this year.
Noah Fifita, 70 touchdowns, an overall Arizona record, first team all Big 12. You got to give this dude his flowers, man. He spent some time in the quarterback club, came out of the quarterback club, and then after that, the quarterback club karma just took over for him. It was a wonderful
He was unbelievable
year
this season and took care of the football extremely well. Again, from what the expectations were coming into this season and all the turnover issues he had a year ago to how they played this year and some of the key wins down the stretch, really impressive stuff for Arizona.
Arizona looking to be the third Big 12 team to beat SMU this season. That's an interesting stat nonetheless. All right, we'll step aside. We're going to come back. Red Raiders, Big 12 champs. We're going to recap that huge game, that celebration, and also we'll talk about what lies ahead for Joey Maguire's team. Inside the 12 is brought to you by Hell of a Good Dip. Game on, dip in with Hell of a Good. Well, over the weekend, my man Taylor McCarg was there live and in person at the Big 12 title game at AT&T Stadium. We bring him in right now. The Edward Jones Big 12 championship game. Let's recap it right now. Texas Tech 34-7 over BYU. Texas Tech's defense really just that good. You were there. What did you see up close and personal down on the sidelines?
You know, BYU, I thought, had a great game plan coming into this matchup. They understood from the first time around where BYU, it was such a tilted field. The field position was a nightmare for BYU. They had a great game plan for trying to get the ball out of Barrett Bachmeier's hands quickly and keep their offense on the field. The problem, you see the total yards there, 200 yards, the passing yards at just 137. The completions for BYU were all underneath passes. It was all close to the line of scrimmage. And Texas Tech, as we know, they don't give up a lot of yards after catch. And BYU, those 4 turnovers that you saw late in the game, and specifically in that fourth quarter, BYU finally had to try and take some shots downfield, try to get the ball and push it vertically. And that's where you saw Texas Tech come alive and get after the quarterback and create those turnovers. For BYU, again, I liked the game plan of trying to grind out drives, keep everything underneath. The opening first scripted drive of the game where they drive down the field and score a touchdown, thought, okay, maybe they've got some answers figured out. But as the game went along, you just saw that Texas Tech front getting after the quarterback. And when they finally got their opportunity to pin their ears back and come after Barrett Bachmeier, that's where those turnovers were created by, again, I think this is the best front seven in all of college football. And if it's not them, you can make an argument for Oklahoma, but they're in the top 2. And I think it's going to serve them well in what's to come for them in the playoffs.
Taylor, you played big-time college football, right? You played against teams like Texas A&M. You played in a bowl game, quarterbacking for Rice. When you are down at ground zero watching these guys operate, this front seven, what is unique about them to you that has made them such a powerhouse?
They don't really need to blitz very often. They do such a good job getting after the quarterback, just rushing 3 and 4, that it allows guys like Ben Roberts and Jacob Rodriguez at the linebacker spot to keep their eyes on the quarterback. You saw that interception from Roberts. They're not having to try to blitz their linebackers and add extra numbers where it opens up those throwing lanes. And I think that's what stands out most to me is the consistent pressure that they're getting on the quarterback. And then they're also able to drop a number into coverage. It's just challenging for the quarterback. There's nowhere to go with the football. And you could see from field level exactly what Barrett Bachmeier thinks is coming open, where they're trying to throw a layered throw, and this is my window that I think is there, and then it closes up immediately. And I also think, again, what stands out on the other side on the back end, the defensive backs, corners and safeties for Texas Tech, they do such a good job rallying and tackling. You just don't see a lot of yards after catch. Barrett Bachmeier would get the ball out of his hands quickly, but it's a 4 or 5 yard game. Very rarely did you see somebody break a tackle and turn it into a first down kind of play.
Big part of that defense, Jacob Rodriguez, Bronco Nagurski Award winner. We learned that late last week. We also learned early this week he won't be going to New York for the Heisman Trophy. Okay, let's move on. He got snubbed. I don't like it. Neither do you. But now he gets to play in the college football playoff, which I'm sure he is more excited about. The Capital One Orange Bowl, that'll be at Hard Rock Stadium in Miami, Florida, New Year's Day, noon Eastern time on ESPN. Texas Tech will face the winner of James Madison and Oregon, that game taking place on December 20th. Texas Texas Tech 0-3 in Miami all-time, but it was always against the University of Miami. This is much different. The thing about Tech that I love is their dominance all year long. They've won by a margin of 29 points or more. That's number one in the country. Here's how they stack up against Oregon if Oregon were to advance against JMU. Your thoughts on this possible matchup, Taylor?
That I think this lines up very well for Texas Tech. I think for a second round game against a team in Oregon that you've got the blueprint from earlier in the year with how Indiana beat Oregon, going on the road, playing good defense, creating some takeaways. I thought that, especially in the second half, that's when the tide of that game turned. And for Texas Tech, we know what they are. Their identity is going to be play solid defense. On the offensive side, it's kind of amazing to see the statistics that you see there with the total yards and the number of points per game. It doesn't happen all at once, right? This isn't a team that jumps out in a lot of games and in the first or second quarter you think, man, this game's already over. I thought the Big 12 championship was a great example of that. They sort of smother you over the course of 4 quarters. And I think that'll serve them well in these playoff matchups where they are used to playing at a high level, playing championship defense for all 4 quarters. And that's what they'll need against Oregon.
You know, Texas Tech, the only team top 5 in offense and defensive points per game and yards per game. Just an absolute juggernaut this year. Stay with us. We've got more of Inside the 12 when we come back. Welcome back to Inside the 12. Pete Souza with Taylor McHarg. It's that time of year, Taylor. We got new faces and new places as the merry-go-round has slowed down and really stopped spinning. A couple big ones in the Big 12. Iowa State saying goodbye to Matt Campbell. Did such a wonderful job with the Cyclones. All-time record of 72 wins over 10 seasons. Before we get to Campbell and give him his flowers, let's talk about Jimmy Rogers, their new head coach. You actually got a chance to cover about 4 of his games. From what I heard, he was a little sick of you by the time it was all over. But you got to know this dude over the course of the past couple of years, calling games for ESPN and CBS. What'd you learn?
That this is a no-nonsense football coach. And I actually think in a similar way that Matt Campbell was in his time at Iowa State, in all the best ways. I think we had him a number of times at South Dakota State during his runs in the playoffs, and then also his opener a year ago at Oklahoma State when South Dakota State went on the road there. And this is a guy that understands the region, understands how to recruit. And the thing that stood out to me about his time at Washington State, go get the comments from Lane Kiffin when Washington State went on the road against Ole Miss and about the effort and intensity that Washington State played with. That's what you're going to get out of Jimmy Rogers. And from those teams at South Dakota State where they were on their championship run, that's what I thought defined, his teams and sort of the ethos and makeup of what Iowa State fans should expect. And again, I think that's very similar to what Matt Campbell brought to that program. Intensity, no nonsense. Your guys are going to show up week in and week out. And I think this was a knockout hire for Iowa State. I think this is something they should be very excited about. It stings to lose your head coach, but if you're going to lose them to a place like Penn State, I thought their athletic director's comments about, Matt Campbell doesn't owe us anything. I thought that was great. And I think that Iowa State knocked it out of the park with this hire with Jimmy Rogers.
As a kid from Texas who was recruited by a lot of these Big 12 teams, can you put into context for us this leap that Iowa State made under the stewardship of Matt Campbell?
I can. I was committed to Iowa State once upon a time before Gene Chizik left to go to Auburn, and they were 2-10 when I was committed to them. And it was the crowd, the atmosphere, that was all still there. This was a very proud fan base, even when they were not winning football games. But I think Matt Campbell brought them to a position of consistency where you expected them to be competing year in and year out, not just for bowl games, but for Big 12 championships. And I think that'll continue to be the expectation. That will not fall off with Jimmy Rogers. And again, I think a lot of him as a coach, and I think this was a great hire for the Cyclones.
That's great insight there, Taylor. Okay, we move on now. Baylor's new athletic director, Doug McNamee. I can talk a little bit about this, having relationships around that school. He's a Baylor grad, was in the athletic department forever. When Scott Drew got the job, he was the guy who showed him around the old Farrell Center, right? Like he was that embedded in the university and the basketball program. He is a guy that knows how to develop money. I think Coach Drew was on the radio this week here in Central Texas and talked about the fact that Baylor's one of the largest Baptist universities in the country. It is. And there are resources there that can be tapped into. But I think for myself, and I'm curious to see how you feel about this, to have an athletic director who went to school there, who graduated from the school, who is not an administrator or just a high-profile business guy from somewhere out in the stratosphere. I think that's important. How do you feel about that?
If you've got Chip and Joanna Gaines giving their nod at the opening press conference, then you probably got the right guy. And I think Baylor is a unique place where, from the outside looking in, some of the comments that you see where, okay, who is this guy that they brought in that was running Field and Stream magazine? That doesn't tell the full story. I think, like you mentioned, Pete, this is a guy that understands Baylor inside and out, and went to school there, was a part of this athletic program for a while. And the backing that he has, I think this should re-energize this athletics program. And then it's all about with Dave Aranda, can they get back to their form that Baylor expects on the football field? Yeah,
in his opening press conference, he called the last few years or the last year unacceptable for football. So they're looking for a change there as far as production goes. All right, let's get to your quarterback rankings. A lot of production here, dude. We've got the top 5 quarterbacks for Taylor McHargue. Let's go. Start us off. What do you got?
Let's start with Bear Bachmeier at number 5. I think should be a freshman All-American this year. And again, he was not on campus until June, becomes their starting quarterback. And to get them to a one-loss regular season, get them to the Big 12 championship, and your only time you lost this season was to the number 4 team in the country and the best defense in the Big 12. Incredibly impressive stuff out of Bear Bachmeier in his true freshman campaign. 14
passing touchdowns, 11 rushing touchdowns. Remember it, folks. We may not see that again anytime soon. Who you got it for?
Devin Dampier for Utah, and how disappointing the season was a year ago. To get them back to where I think Utah expects to be, competing for Big 12 championships. What he did through the air, but also on the ground, his effectiveness running the football when he was at his best and when he was healthy specifically, I thought he was one of the best quarterbacks in the Big 12, and where I think you saw him come in with the Big 12 rankings at the end of the season from the coaches, I thought told that story.
Yeah, 22 rushing touchdowns there, almost 2,200, or 22 passing touchdowns, excuse me, and almost 2,200 passing yards. A lights out season for him. Let's move on to 3.
I'm going with Baron Morton, and a guy that I don't think got enough recognition and love in the postseason from some of the media and the coaches around the league. But he's been on campus forever. He means so much to that program, and to bring home the first Big 12 championship in your final year on campus, being in the building and seeing what he means to that team. As good as their defense is, they didn't ask him to do as much. And again, he's been banged up for a lot of this season. So I think his effectiveness as a quarterback and getting them to this point is more to do with me having him in this spot than necessarily the statistics. But another big year for Baron Morton, and a lot of football hopefully ahead for Baron Morton.
As I come into this college football playoff pulling for Texas Tech, I love that he's below the radar right now. I think it sets up perfectly. Tell me who you got at number 2.
I'm going with Brennan Sorsby, and a guy that for Cincinnati, he was in large part the entire offense for the Bearcats for most of the season. And I know that they struggled in the month of November. That's really when the schedule got the most difficult for the Bearcats. But Brennan Sorsby, the production that he had and how physical he was as a runner, so much of his production also came on the ground. And I thought in a lot of ways he was very similar to Sawyer Robertson at Baylor, where they put so much on his plate, and I thought he delivered in a big way for Cincinnati.
All right, who's the top dog? You got a number 1. I got a pretty good idea because he's not on the list so far, but he's lights out.
Man, Noah Fafita, and he came in at first team all-conference for the Big 12, and I completely agree. Go back a year ago to how much he turned the football over and the struggles that they had protecting the football. And then to turn around the next year and how well he protected the ball and how dynamic he was, downfield shot plays, and getting them to 9-3 this season. Thought incredibly impressive out of Noah Fafita, and glad that he's got this other opportunity in the bowl game to try to get Arizona to that 10th win. All
right, we're not done with the hardware yet. We're going to come back with the top plays of the 2025 Big 12 season. Stay with us. Time for Inside the 12's top 10 game-breaking plays of the season. Of course, brought to you by Hell of a Good Dips. Game on, dip in with Hell of a Good. All right, let's begin week 2 in Cincinnati. Brennan Sorsby finding wide receiver Jeff Caldwell along the sideline. Look at this. The one-handed grab was good for 29 yards.
My favorite interception of the season, the first matchup between BYU and Texas Tech. How about Jacob Rodriguez? Reading the quarterback's eyes, tip drill to himself, Best linebacker in the country, showing you why with that big interception.
All the dude did was produce a turnover in just about every single game. Amazing. All right, let's go to Kansas, week 4. Running back LaShawn Williams running through, that's right, through and around West Virginia defenders. When it was all said and done, a 62-yard touchdown gallop.
We head to UCF. How about this play from Marcus Burke? Over the middle of the field, one-handed snag. This is not one where you tip it up or you trap the ball. Watch this. One-hand snag, bring it down. Huge play from Marcus Burke.
Now, this was part of an incredible comeback. Sawyer Robertson, so calm, so cool, unloads. Here's Josh Cameron bringing it down. That was a clutch catch as well. Baylor would go on to win it. That was a 48-yard touchdown.
We go back to week 10 for our number 5 play. This is Trey Spivey taking a screen, making everybody miss. 57 yards. Look how many broken tackles on this play from Mr. Spivey all the way to the end zone. I think maybe could have been in a little higher than our 5th spot there for Spivey.
Amari Thomas, he says, hey, look what I can do. How about that? Tosses Wildcat defenders all over the place. A 52-yard touchdown. This dude was making an impact every single game.
Speaking about making an impact, how about Dean Connors for the Houston Cougars? Transfers in from Rice, does exactly what he's used to, making plays like this. One-handed catch at the goal line over Oklahoma State.
All right, you guys had this at 2. I got it at number 1. Late game comeback thanks to this guy, Bear Bachmeier. Bang, bang, just dragging guys into the end zone. To watch that game live, man, the crowd just rolled into the end zone with him. An unbelievable play, a signature moment, too, for BYU.
And our number 1 play of the season, going back to Jordan Tyson, showing you why he's the top receiver in all of college football. Makes the play, and then how about the hurdle at the end zone? From his quarterback, Sam Levitt, make one miss, and then up and over right here. Another huge play from Jordan Tyson.
I mean, and just think, it took us forever to whittle it down to 10 plays. Talking to people around the country, truly, with what we do, you talk to someone about the Big 12, and there's a reason why a different league has been paired with the Big 12 Conference. It's special, it's unique, and not only is the brand of football, look no further than Texas Tech and BYU, lights out, but it's the most electric conference in the country on a game-in, game-out basis.
There's no doubt. And I think you also saw some teams this year take a big step forward in a way that a lot of people weren't expecting. You know, I think Houston and Arizona getting to the 9-win spot, TCU playing better late in the season, Cincinnati having a chance at the playoffs late in the year, and then BYU, again, a team that did not have their starting quarterback. They didn't know who that was going to be in the summer of this year. So all of that said, Texas Tech, I think we ended up with the correct champion out of this league. This was the best team all season, and big things to come, not just for Texas Tech in the college football playoff, but for this league in the bowl championship series.
Yeah, and big things to come for us. We're not going to forget about football. We'll be watching Texas Tech all the way through the college football playoff. We'll be crossing over to basketball soon to give you exactly what's going on the hardwood. For Taylor McHargue, I'm Pete Souza. Been an awesome season. We will see you next week on Inside the 12.